The WWE Draft kicks off on Friday Night SmackDown, but before we get to the draft, we got a final preview today of some things that I think WWE really needs to focus on Friday and Monday night come the WWE Draft. First things first, man, when it comes to priorities in the WWE Draft that I really want them to focus on between Raw and SmackDown, and that's prioritizing the tag team division. Now, through the Bloodline storyline, through the Usos, through Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, the tag team titles have absolutely felt more important ever since Triple H took over writing the show last summer, but we need to continue moving forward with that. We need more teams that isn't just the Usos and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. And sure, we have gotten teams like the Brawling Brutes and the Viking Raiders, Strowman and Ricochet, Alpha Academy. There's been other teams, Street Profits, on Raw and SmackDown, but I really want to see them continue to add to that tag team division, man, because when you really look at it, if you're going to split this division possibly, which I personally, let's just branch off for a second, I personally would have one set of tag team titles, float the champions between both shows. When they lose the titles, they'll just be assigned to one show, whichever show they're technically drafted to, but I honestly don't see that happening. I think eventually we are going to get a split of the tag team titles, so if that's the case, and if we have two separate divisions, we really need to add some depth to those divisions. Now, bring back OC. They have not been, Anderson and Gallows have not been on TV since AJ Styles got injured. That was like December. Get them back on TV. Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin, they were on Monday Night Raw together this past week. Continue to use them as a tag team. Johnny Gargano has not been doing much of anything since his WWE return, which I don't think is the biggest deal in the world. I wasn't expecting Gargano to be involved in any, heavy WrestleMania plans, but now that I think Gargano is currently dealing with an injury, but once he's back, once Tommaso Ciampa's back, put DIY back together, that could be one of the top teams on either Raw or SmackDown. You also got NXT, which you can pull from, and I think there's really only one team that sticks out from NXT, that being Pretty Deadly. I think a lot of people are rumoring they're going to get called up to either Raw or SmackDown, and I think that'd be great, man. Listen, like I said, I personally would keep one set of tag team titles and have still two divisions technically, but have the champions float between both shows. I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe it will for at least a little while, but down the line, maybe even by United Champions, I think we're going to have a split of the Raw and SmackDown tag team titles. So if that's going to be the case, I really want WWE to prioritize the tag team division and add some depth and build some incredible tag team divisions on Raw and SmackDown through the draft. And one last note on the tag team division, man, through the draft, I really don't want any teams to get split up, man. Alpha Academy doesn't need to get split up. And I'm just throwing out ideas here. I'm not saying these are going to happen. These are rumored. I'm just talking out loud. But Chad Gable, I really want him to get a big singles push, but there's no reason to split him apart from Otis to do so. They can still have Alpha Academy as a team and, have Gable do single stuff. Same thing for Street Profits. Montez Ford can eventually become, a big single star, go after the US or the Intercontinental title, whatever that may be, while still keeping the Street Profits together. I don't think WWE has nearly enough depth in the tag team division to start splitting up teams, especially some of their top ones. So hopefully through the draft, we do not see any units or tag teams break up. And we talked about it briefly with Pretty Deadly, but there's a lot of NXT call-ups that we could see. A lot of people from that brand that I think could really help Raw and SmackDown have some depth to their shows and really start building a brand new Monday night and Friday night show. I'm gonna look down on my list here a little bit on the computer, and I'm just raffling off names. I'm not saying all of these people are gonna get brought up. A lot of these names, if not all of them, have been rumored. Some of them, more or less a couple in the women's division, I personally would just like to see get brought up. But you got Tyler Bate, Ilya Dragunov, Pretty Deadly that I mentioned, Cameron Grimes, I don't even think he's been on WWE television for months, Joe Gacy, Roxanne Perez, Cora Jade, Katana Chance, and Kaden Carter. Indy Hartwell, who I know is the NXT Women's Champion, but I think her and Candice LeRae as a tag team could be a much-needed tag team in a basically non-existent women's tag team division. So Indy Hartwell, Grayson Waller, and of course, Braun Breaker. There's a bunch of names there that I think could absolutely add some just incredible watchability. And like I keep saying throughout this video, because it's very important with the brand split, depth to Raw and SmackDown. I mean, look at Dragunov, look at Tyler Bate. Those are two matches for Gunther right there for the Intercontinental Championship. That could be absolutely awesome. Braun Breaker, I know they just turned him heel, but the main roster is always a fresh start for people. They can turn him babyface, have him go against Austin Theory for the United States title, or they can keep him heel and have him, eventually go after, Seth Rollins if he's the world champion. Like, there's a lot for these guys to do that can add some brand new stuff on the main roster. And talk about adding depth to the tag team division, the women's division needs that just as much. The women's division overall just needs more focus. I mean, it's been, well documented, and it continues to be well documented how really poorly the women's division gets treated, and obviously we know they're capable of so much more because we've seen them be capable of so much more. So with the division itself that we have on Raw and SmackDown right now, I think you really need to take your time, long-term plan those divisions, and really, pick apart, all right, who's going to be on SmackDown, who's going to be our main feuds, our main matches, so we have some stuff to build towards on that show. Same thing for Monday Night Raw. And then through some call-ups, Indy Hartwell, like I mentioned, obviously is a single star. She's the NXT Women's Champion right now. You could easily call her up, tag her with Candice LeRae. I would have done this already, and have them in the women's tag team division, which again is basically non-existent. Same thing with Kaden Carter and Katana Chance. That's a solid women's tag team, former NXT Women's Tag Team Champions, another team that you could add to that division. Cora Jade, Roxanne Perez, those are two women that have been cornerstones of the women's division in NXT for, over a year now, and I think they could both benefit Raw and SmackDown. Roxanne, very young in her career. Cora Jade, same thing. A lot you can do with them. It doesn't need to be rushing them into championship matches right away. You could have early storylines for both of them and really build them up, one on one show, one on the other. Obviously, they have history, former tag team, then rivals in NXT. You could have one on one show, one on the other, build them up to eventually meet down the line. You got to think long term in the draft, man. And I think all those women that I mentioned, I know it's only 4 of them. Maybe you can bring up more. Tiffany Stratton, I think, is great. There's probably other women that I'm forgetting as well. There's definitely some options to help build the women's division. And I know I mentioned it, man, but long-term planning is so important with the WWE Draft. And I really point this out because we have gone through drafts, 2019, 20, 21. All of these drafts, man, that were done by Vince McMahon had basically no planning, and it was clear as day. I mean, somebody might say, well, they thought about where Roman was going to go and this, that, and the other, but it just felt like they were just picking names out of a hat for the most part, and that person's going to go to this show and that person's going to go another, and it just really didn't feel that well thought out. And I just really want this time around, hopefully, if Triple H has his say, and I know Vince McMahon has say as well, but at the end of the day, I hope they go into this with, all right, Roman's going to be on SmackDown. When's Roman dropping the title? Is it going to be SummerSlam? Is it going to be WrestleMania? If it's WrestleMania, who's Roman going to fight over the next year? All right, let's make sure Jay's over there, Solo's over there, Cody's over there, Nakamura's over there, Lashley's, like whoever you want to face Roman Reigns to have some fresh matches. Think about the next year. Same thing with Monday Night Raw, and especially that main event scene. Assuming that Raw will have the new World Championship, which I think they will. Seth Rollins, Edge, Drew McIntyre. Those are 3 guys that I talked about in my video yesterday that I think are very important. I think are top 3 guys that could possibly have a run with the World Heavyweight Championship. I'd put all those guys on Monday Night Raw. And I would think about long term over the next year until next year's draft. Who's winning the title first? When are they going to drop it? Who's going to be the champ going into WrestleMania and out of WrestleMania next year? For the most part, I know plans change. A lot of things happen on the fly. But you see, long-term planning works out great in the example of the Bloodline storyline for the last year. And you see we're not even technically in the end game yet, if you will, as Triple H has said himself. I think the end game will hopefully, in one case be Cody beating Roman, and then the storyline is going to continue with Roman versus his own family. More long-term planning, especially for that new World Heavyweight Championship, and that Raw main event scene is going to be very important. And I hope they're going into this draft with well thought out ideas, because if they don't, the only excuse they have is that they were lazy and didn't think about it, because they've had so much time to think about this draft. And I don't want to see rosters that are clearly thrown together and then a couple of weeks in, they're stumbling to start new storylines, they're stumbling to get things going, and they're stumbling to build excitement, because this draft should be the kickoff of a very exciting summer in WWE. One more thing that is very important, in my opinion, for this WWE draft, as this is a final preview before the shows, is that I really want them to stick to the brand split, stick to the rosters. I don't want to see SmackDown people showing up on Raw and vice versa. And that might be common sense to me and you, but how many times over the year do we get a draft and then somebody was showing up on the other show? This is very common in Vince McMahon era superstar shakeups and drafts in recent years. It almost felt like the brand split at many times wasn't even that important. I mean, literally, I remember I wasn't even watching WWE on a week-to-week basis, and the Bloodline, who were 100% predominant SmackDown guys on the SmackDown roster, were showing up on Raw to fight the New Day and to fight the Hurt Business, and they had no reason to be there. It was like, they're SmackDown guys. Why are they on Monday Night Raw? If we're sticking with the brand split, if they're not going to be doing, one big WWE roster, we're going to be getting a separate roster for Raw, separate roster for SmackDown, fine, I'm all for it. It's what I'd prefer. but stick to those rosters. And listen, I've given them the pass ever since Triple H took over, because I mean, listen, if it were up to me, we would have had this draft in friggin' September or something after SummerSlam, but they wanted to get through WrestleMania, through NXT call-ups and re-signings. They bolstered the rosters a little bit, and then just in the lead up to WrestleMania, you know, people have been showing up everywhere, and Raw and SmackDown themselves over the last few weeks have been the same 4 or 5 storylines: LWO, Judgment Day, Bloodline, you know, all the same people on you know, the other shows, which is fine. A brand split doesn't matter at the current moment, but once we get this draft, I want solidarity. Solidarity, is that the word? I want exclusivity. I'm not saying any of these words right, but the SmackDown guys on the blue brand, the Raw guys on the red brand, and stay there. And no, when Survivor Series comes, I don't want to see a brand versus brand supremacy thing. That the concept's dead in the water. Vince McMahon killed it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see these brands interact at any time over the next year, unless it's the Royal Rumble match and then next year's draft. That's just what I would do. Let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think is top priority for WWE to accomplish in this draft? We've made a lot of videos discussing this, the new World Championship, which I've obviously given a lot of thoughts regarding the draft and who I would have fighting for that World Championship, assuming on Monday Night Raw. So definitely go check out all the recent content, especially the fantasy booking, fantasy draft of the 2023 WWE Draft. All those videos linked up in the cards, that little eye in the sky, so go check it out. And guys, I will be here Friday night, Saturday morning, whenever the video gets uploaded, for my draft review for Friday Night SmackDown. We will be doing the same thing next Monday night for Raw. Be sure to go follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at NoahNationVlogs. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.